It started with an abrupt quiet, an absence greater than any sound, more cacophonous than 1,000 alarms. Decades had passed since Voyager 1 had sailed through the void, whispering its weak, insistent signals home. The spacecraft, launched in 1977, had far outlasted all predictions, still broadcasting information from the fringes of interstellar space, a mere 15 billion miles hence. It had become a symbol of perseverance, of man's curiosity thrust into the infinite unknown. Scientists watched over it with awe-filled vigilance, always assuming its soft were to continue, even as its equipment grew old and its energy waned. To many among the scientific fraternity, Voyager was not a machine, it was a co-worker, a quiet traveler faithfully submitting dispatches from a border inaccessible to man. And then the final message, and all was static. The instant that Voyager 1's final transmission appeared, it wasn't a mechanical failure or unresponsive silence that surprised everybody, it was what the message contained. A sudden flash of data, brief and abrupt, as if the vessel had called upon its remaining reserves of energy to transmit one last message. The data flow started as usual, known telemetry from distant space. But then the instruments detected something unusual, an anomaly unlike anything ever seen in decades of interstellar measurements. Something beyond the reach of known cosmic events. Initially, the anomaly was thought to be a glitch. Ancient hardware, radiation interference, possible, even probable. But the more they looked at it, the more bizarre it got. The integrity of the signal was too pristine, its form too purposeful. It looked organized, not random, not noise, not natural. In seconds of having the packet in hand, analysts for the Deep Space Network were on the move, decrypting, cross-verifying, analyzing in a control center normally full of measured serenity. Screens flashed with graphs and spectrograms, numbers scrolling by in an endless stream as algorithms labored to identify known patterns. A physical sense of urgency spread. The data appeared to contradict conventional models of astrophysics. There were unexpected bursts of energy fields Voyager was not supposed to be able to measure, patterns within radiation frequencies too intentional to be coincidence. And then the transmission ended. No fade, no static, simply termination. The ensuing silence was complete. It shrouded the scientific community like a burden, a point when all orbiting satellites, all ground-based telescopes, all astrophysicists and engineers all breathed in unison, not because of what was destroyed, but because of what could have been discovered. The tone of the message implied one thing more than anything else: contact. Not contact in the classic science fiction meaning. There were no words, no sounds. But the transmission carried the mark of design, mathematical exactness placed in a foreign context. Frequencies stacked as chords in an extraterrestrial symphony, harmonies impossible with human instruments but somehow harmonious with a strange, universal reasoning. The wave pattern created ratios and sequences eerily similar to the Fibonacci sequence but just slightly off beam, as if redone by a different type of intelligence with its own mathematics, its own physics, its own reality. It wasn't different, it was alien in the best sense. And it arrived from outside the heliopause, the edge of the solar wind and interstellar space. That space, formerly assumed to be empty and unremarkable, now bore the fingerprints of something intentional. Voyager 1 had seen it, reached out and touched it out there, and spent its final reserves of power describing it to us. In that moment, all our assumptions regarding our position in the universe shifted. The idea of isolation was broken, not by a cacophonous message from the stars, but by the dying whisper of a machine. Mission Control caught their breaths and double-checked each signal channel, each data packet, verifying it hadn't been a malfunction or interference. The data was real, genuine. Its complexity in structure and deviation from anticipated physics served as a fingerprint. Voyager 1 had witnessed something, and it had attempted to tell it in the universe's language. Astronomers searched the area of sky whence Voyager had most recently reported, and nothing out of the ordinary was seen in the visual, infrared, or radio waves. The space was empty, quiet. The message was a burst, not a beacon, an afterimage, not a conversation. But it left us with a feeling of unmistakable presence, as if we were no longer mere witnesses to the universe, but had at last been witnessed ourselves. Governments suspended rivalries. telescopes swiveled. Research facilities, national boundaries forgotten, collaborated to analyze the structure of the transmission. Linguists and mathematicians and theoretical physicists, disciplines that did not often intersect, gathered in international conference calls. But beneath the cooperation beat a shared worry. If this was contact, then what did it signify? A greeting, a threat, a footprint carelessly left by something passing through? The message contained no explicit threat, no ultimata, no blatant indicators of aggression, and yet its presence assumed scales of perception and intellect far beyond human. If it was deliberate, it was from something that knew of us, or at least, knew of Voyager. If it was accidental, it meant our small nuclear-powered ship had strayed near a thing so huge, so complex, that it marked its presence upon Voyager's sensors like the touch of a titanic breeze upon a spider's web. Voyager 1's course had not altered. It had not hit something solid, but something had crossed paths with it, or it had passed into an area of space where the laws of reality functioned differently. Maybe this last message was not from an intelligence in the way we understand it, but from the universe itself, revealing a new aspect of its nature. The ramifications were mind-boggling. If the transmission might be deciphered, if even a small portion could be decoded, it could reveal a door to physics unimaginable, to forms of energy as yet unknown, even a glimpse of civilizations based on entirely different wavelengths of existence. The message was more than a matter of interest, it was potentially the most significant scientific breakthrough in the history of humanity. And it was born of nothing, when the last of our interstellar ambassadors died. Year after year, Voyager's signals had faded, dispersed, broken. Engineers had rearranged its systems countless times, scavenging one device to sustain another. Data was a rare commodity. They had learned to cherish every data packet, aware that the stream would one day cease. And then, as if aware that the time was right, it sent this last act, a cosmic burst before freezing up. Nothing has come since. Voyager 1 is quiet now, out of reach, a dot in the immense Black Sea. But that single transmission has redefined the stakes. We launched a probe to investigate planets. It discovered something that was never part of the plan, something that extended back. What Voyager 1 discovered, what it documented in those last moments, will preoccupy minds and hypotheses for decades. The message wasn't information. It was a change of perspective, a ripple disturbing the calm waters of cosmic isolation. Humanity had waited for centuries looking outward, hoping, questioning if others were out there. The last message did not deliver a final answer, but it skewed the question. The quiet of space is no longer quiet, it is a held breath, thick with knowing that something once traversed it. This wasn't an invasion. There were no boats, no glinting in the air. It was too intimate for that, a soft touch on the shoulder, a rub in the dirt. A proposal that the universe is more than just a stage, but a platform upon which others have danced, too, or continue to do so unseen. Voyager 1 never intended to bear the weight of revelation. It was a machine for measurement, a wanderer without purpose. But in its decayed circuits and extended, solitary journey, it became the ideal witness. Cut loose from the planet, but bound by signal, isolated in the void, yet with the hopes of a species resting on it. And when it went as far as it could, it gave us this, the realization that we are not alone who can leave a message among the stars. The signal is being dissected now in a million ways. Some look for patterns in the quirks, searching for mathematical certainties. Others tune in for the sound of a melody within the hiss. But beyond the scientific interpretation lies a more primal human reaction, awe. That naked electric thrill of knowing the world just shifted, and nothing will ever be the same again. The voice of Voyager 1 did not signal an end, it signaled a beginning. A door had opened in the mind, and it had shown that the universe is not an emptiness, but a volume, one that was full of secrets, messages, and maybe eventual encounters. The last message had not been a farewell, it was a signpost leading into the future, into the unknown. It had not brought resolution. It had brought questions, the ones which burn more intensely than any answer. The earth continued to turn. The stars still shone. But for those who had witnessed the data, who had sensed the weight of what Voyager 1 had perhaps come in contact with, the world felt different, vibrant, less isolated. It wasn't the sort of event that came with explosions or world broadcasts. It was something more profound, an alignment of comprehension, a contained wonder that settled like stardust within the mind. Voyager 1 now floats in silence, its energy spent, its instruments chilled. But in that last transmission, it went beyond its equipment. It became not simply a scientific tool, but a legend, an emissary, not merely of man, but of the universe itself. Whatever it met, whoever, whatever, it gave a glimpse. And a glimpse was all it required. And by doing so, it didn't simply halt the world, it reminded it to hear.